Hey everyone, Joanne from Art Resin here, and today I am joined by artist Shilpi Patel. I'm so excited that you're here with us today.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Shilpi is a geode artist, and this is one of her beautiful pieces here behind us. And Shilpi's going to walk me through how to create a piece of geode art. And I love the look of this work, but I'm not going to lie, I've been intimidated on how to make it. So I'm so excited you're going to show us.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here as well. So this will be like a beginner thing. So along with you, I know a lot of your viewers are going to watch this as well, and hopefully they can follow along. And at the end of it, we'll create something really pretty.
That's amazing. Yeah. I love the color palette you have here. So do you want to just walk us through what we have on the table?
Yeah, so we're using some resin, and we have crystals that we obviously need for geode art. And then I'm using mica powders today. You're using some resin tints, and you have beautiful crystal and glitter and all of that fun stuff.
I'm excited. Should we get started?
Yeah, let's get started. So before we start any type of resin artwork, the first thing I like to do is prep work. So luckily for us, these boards are already primed. They're primed white. So the only thing we have left to do is take the back off.
Right.
So we have some tape and scissors.
And taping before you start is one of those things. It only takes a couple of minutes, but it saves you so much time at the end because the tape is going to catch all of the resin drips if there are any.
And then you'll have this really nice clean finish at the end as well.
Exactly. So when your piece is dry, you just rip off the tape and all the drips come right off with it. All right, that should do it. And we decided to cover the entire back lip of the panel just in case there was any runoff, right? Runover. So what's our next step now?
So this part is actually my favorite part. It's where you get to plan out a design. So we're gonna use our crystals and we're just gonna go for it. We're gonna pick a pattern that we like and kind of play around with it until we're confident enough to start the resin.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, so just make sure you have your gloves on.
Yes, these are glass crystals, right?
Yeah, so you don't want to hurt yourself. And I typically like to use like a mixture of different kind of crystals. I feel like that really gives it a really nice texture.
Okay.
Like instead of it just being one stone. Obviously if you just use one stone, that still looks as pretty. I just think that with the different tones, it kind of adds a little bit of dimension.
Okay, great.
So feel free to use whatever you like.
So I'm just going to follow your lead.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to watch what you do.
Okay, so I like starting off with these clear crystals first. So I think today what I want to do is a little bit more of a symmetrical look. So I'm going to kind of aim for like a little bit of a, I guess, symmetrical type thing. So we'll have this all down. I like to use a lot of these.
So you can go symmetrical or you can go kind of abstract, right?
Yeah, abstract too. So for example, like in your case, since you have that big stone, if you wanted to make it a center, you could do that as well. It's all about, you know, expression of the artist. So whatever you think will look good and whatever you want to do, by all means do it.
Okay.
So yeah. So say we have this going on. So I'm just gonna have a little hill here. And then I like going in with like a little bit of a lighter gold shade, and I kind of like having a little bit of an outline. These are typically a little bit smaller than these ones, so I think that they complement each other perfectly.
Yeah, they do. So, I love you've got the clear, you've got the kind of gold and the silver.
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful.
So we'll do that. So I add just a tiny bit.
And they're all slightly different sizes as well, which is
nice. That's where you get the dimension from, you know? Like it looks like you actually, there's so much going on, but it looks so pretty. And then we're just gonna play around with it until you're kind of happy with whatever pattern you like. And yeah, so I think I'm gonna go with something like this and kind of focus on it being more resin maybe. Yeah, so.
And so you're gonna build your design out, like all the blues and the golds based on this.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So I do have a little tip. I sometimes like using a brush. So I'll use, if I don't want to use my hands to push it, I'll just push, like if I want to create like a curve. So it's really hard sometimes to like do this, right? And you could even cut yourself because this is glass. So if you use a brush to just slightly push, you can just to make little
adjustments.
Yeah. Yeah,
that's great.
Go ahead, let's see what you come up with.
All right, so I'm going to use this crystal, And this actually is one that I made using our mold making materials. So I found a crystal that I really loved, but I thought it just was a little bit too thick.
Yeah.
So I used mold making material and made a mold.
Yeah,
and
so cool.
yeah, so it's great. So I made it it's a little bit shorter than the original. And then, you know, you can also make them tinted whatever color you want as well, and you can make it over and over and over again, and it's way more cost effective than going out and buying like a big honking crystal like this every time. So yeah, so I wanted to incorporate this. So I wonder if I should maybe follow your pattern there. Okay. I'll start with it at the top and then kind of build my rocks around it.
Yeah, that sounds good. So go ahead.
And I was thinking of doing maybe an abstract pattern since you're here to kind of guide me, because that seems harder to me. So I think I'm gonna.
I think it looks harder, but honestly, it's pretty much the same process.
I feel confident with you here to guide me. I guess you're really replicating like something from nature that's totally organic and natural. So there's not really any right or wrong, I guess, right?
Yeah. And that's the beauty of geode art as well, I find, is that like each piece is different, you know? Like you're probably never gonna find a geode like in the world that's the same as another geode. So like with artwork, that kind of takes the stress, like pressure and stress off of you, because it doesn't need to be perfect.
Right.
Like, it can just be whatever you think and whatever you want it to be. So that's always nice.
Maybe I should use the brush to kind of create some.
Yeah.
Because it's looking a little bit too much like a rainbow right now. If I wanted to build this out, I guess I could just push it away, right?
Yeah,
and
you can
just
just
add
push it
more
out.
clear
There you
glass.
go. Yeah. So sometimes you'll notice that these ones come in all different shapes and sizes. So if you don't like, for example, this one's like really huge, right? So if you don't like where this is placed, you could even place it a little bit closer to the bigger rock.
Right.
So it really depends on personal preference. If you find that after we do our layers, because geode artwork is a layering process, so if you find that, you know, I've done the layer, now it's kind of washing out the effects of these crystals, we can always go back and add more crystals on top. Right?
Right.
And so you'll find that we'll be doing that a lot as well as we go through the process.
Okay.
I feel like you should always take your time with this process, because since these are not glued down, you can change it. You know, sometimes you'll have this layout and then you realize, okay, I don't really like it. So then you can easily move it around, you know?
Yeah. It's such a good idea to do it this way. So instead we're going to pour the resin on top, and it's almost going to be like a glue.
Yeah, it is going to be a glue. So
very cool.
you have a lot of time right now to play around with your pattern.
So Shilpi, we're creating our design here and putting the rocks down. Are we going to take the rocks off and then put our resin on, or how is this going to work?
So no, we don't want to do that, because obviously we don't want to ruin all the hard work that you put in. So what we're going to do is, once we have our resin mixed with our first batch, with the clear resin, we're just going to slightly drizzle it over the top of the stones that you have. That way your pattern is kind of glued down exactly the way that you have planned out right now, which is the benefit of doing it this way. If you had done it another way, where you kind of put the resin down and then you put the stones on, you won't have the freedom to move it, you know, because it'll be kind of stuck in place.
Right. And that's smart for two reasons. One, because once you have the resin down, if you put the rocks on top, it's so much harder to move them and adjust. And then two, you're stuck with that 40-minute working window before the resin starts curing.
Yeah. With this technique, like you can use as much time as you want, right? Like,
so smart. I love that.
I think I'm happy with what I have.
It looks amazing.
Yeah, yours looks amazing too. Are you ready?
I think I am ready.
Okay, awesome.
So what's our next step?
So our next step is going to be the resin part. But before that, we actually have to put these up on mini stand.
Because we don't want our piece sticking to the table when it cures.
Exactly.
Right? Okay. We did forget that. I have the stands right here.
Awesome.
So before we resin, let's do that.
Yeah.
All right, Shilpi, so we're gonna measure out our art resin now. So it's equal amounts of resin and hardener. Okay, so we're gonna measure out 100 ml, right? So 50 ml resin, 50 ml hardener.
Awesome.
Okay, so I'll start with the hardener and then we can swap. So some resins are measured by weight. Ours is always by volume, and it's a 1-to-1 ratio. And then we're gonna mix for 3 minutes. And then you always wanna make sure that you scrape the sides and you scrape the bottom as you mix. We're just measuring a small amount because we're gonna drizzle, right?
Yeah, so I guess a tip I have if you're working with larger pieces, so I think anything from like maybe 20 to 20 inches, I like taking this extra step and doing like a little drizzle first, like a separate batch, and then doing another totally separate batch for the body, I guess, of the geode, if you wanna call it that. I feel like it just takes a little bit of pressure off of like, the time frame.
Right.
So our resin's all mixed now, and we're pretty much at the part where we get to drizzle the resin over the stones. But before we do that, an important step is to make sure that our boards are leveled. So with the weight of these crystals and any other additional stones or stuff that you use, sometimes the boards are not leveled. And as you know, your art resin is self-leveling. So it will drip, and sometimes it'll ruin your pattern if you really fall in love with the way you poured it. So we're gonna make sure that it's all leveled.
Perfect.
Good.
Perfect.
Okay, awesome.
Good, so I'll put this away.
We're pretty much ready to drizzle now. And the good thing about drizzling it is that since resin does dry clear, you won't be able to see that there is actually resin on top. And it's really important that you drizzle it and you don't flood it, because what happens when you flood it is that these crystals or these stones or whatever you use, sometimes they will kind of lose their shine. Right. And that's not what we want, right? Okay. We want there to be a little bit of shine and a little bit of glitter and all of that. So basically we're ready to drizzle now.
Good, I am just gonna watch what you do and I'm gonna follow your lead.
Okay, awesome. So actually I think I'm gonna start in this corner.
Okay.
So we'll just drizzle very lightly. And you just wanna drizzle it to the point that every crystal has a little bit of resin touching it. So you don't wanna flood again, like we said, just a little bit so that, each little stone has a little bit of resin.
You literally are drizzling it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the things that you want to make sure is that the stones that are more near the edge, you want to put a little bit more, just slightly a little bit more, because if there are any cracks, if you start off with like a deeper color over here, it will bleed under.
I see, okay.
And we don't want that.
So you're kind of creating like a barrier?
Yeah,
almost?
a little bit of a barrier. So we're just going to do that. Same thing on this end.
When you said that we only needed like a little bit of resin to do this, I couldn't understand how, that would work, but now I see. You really don't need very much at all.
Yeah. As long as like a very little bit of resin touches each and every crystal, like it will stay glued on.
There we go.
Perfect. Right before you get to this point, I do want to point out, if you're going to incorporate any real crystals or, for example, this beautiful quartz that you have going on, you don't want to drizzle on top. Because if you drizzle the resin on top, yes, it will still act as a glue, but now it's going to kind of ruin the natural shape of the crystal. Okay. So what we want to do is I'm just going to have to move this off to the side.
Okay.
And just remember where this is going. Like we know that it's going here, so you're gonna put a little bit more resin over in that area, and then we're just gonna take this and stick it on top.
So it's almost like I'm gluing it down, basically.
Exactly.
Okay, so just a little bit, but just to cover that space where the crystal was.
The space where the crystal was, yeah.
Okay.
Awesome.
Okay.
And now we're just gonna put that.
Put this guy back where he belongs.
Yep. Perfect.
And that's it, secured.
Yeah, I did notice, even in mine and in yours, if you do drizzle a lot, you'll have a little bit of a clear, right?
Yes.
Do you see this going on right
here? Yeah, I've got a bit of it too.
If it does bother you, you could just use your glove or a tissue or something and wipe it off. So I'm gonna do that because I don't want it there.
Okay.
Like I mentioned, I do like having a gold outline, so I don't want this clear to kind of take over the gold, And now, since we do have leftover resin, we're gonna use that for our first shade. And typically, our first shade is gonna be the one that's the closest to the stones. Over here, I have two. I have one going here, I also have one going here. Over here, I don't like having like another gold just because these are clear, so if the gold seeps through, you'll see it.